Hi, welcome back to Joe Blogs. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about a story of fraud and embezzlement involving lots of Italians. And whilst this sounds like something out of a mafia movie, it's actually to do with the Catholic Church and the Vatican City.
Cardinal Angelo Becciu, the most senior Catholic Church official ever to stand trial before a Vatican criminal court, was convicted on Saturday of embezzlement and sentenced to 5.5 years in jail. The trial exposed infighting and intrigue in the highest echelons of the Vatican and revolved mostly around a murky Vatican investment in a Tony London property. The court said Becciu had been irresponsible and, quote, highly speculative to invest more than $200 million in a fund connected to the building about 10 years ago. The Vatican sold the building last year, taking an estimated loss of about 140 million euros or $150 million. Becciu, who was stripped of his title by Pope Francis in 2020, was also accused of funneling money and contracts to companies or charities controlled by his brothers on their native island of Sardinia. Another accusation involved his hiring of a woman who described herself as a security analyst, also from Sardinia, as part of a secret project to help win freedom for a nun who had been kidnapped in Mali. Becciu and the woman were both found guilty of aggravated fraud related to the transfer of money. 9 other officials also faced charges in a case that stretched over 2.5 years with 86 courtroom hearings. Only one was acquitted of all counts.
Now, the Vatican City is officially the smallest country in the world. There are only around 750 people that live in the enclave, which is situated in the heart of Rome. But legally, the Vatican City is entirely independent from Italy. It became independent in 1929. It has its own railway station with 1 train a week, bringing in bonded duty-free goods, a post office, a radio station, a pharmacy, a supermarket, a fire brigade, a 5-star hotel, and one of the world's most visited museums. It also has its own police force, the Vatican Gendarmerie, of which there are around 130 ex-Italian police officers serving, and it also has its own small military force, around 120 of the Pope's Swiss Guards. Now, in terms of the hierarchy within the Vatican City, this chart shows us the rankings of the Catholic Church, and right at the top we've got God. Beneath God, we've got the Pope, who is the single individual who is the head of the Catholic Church. Beneath the Pope, we have cardinals. Beneath the cardinals, we have archbishops, bishops, priests, and then everybody else. And the story of the fraud and embezzlement involves one of the cardinals, so the second highest rank out of the whole of the Catholic Church. These guys only have the Pope as their direct boss. Now, I recently mentioned Pope Francis in a video that I posted on Javier Milei because Pope Francis is Argentinian. And in the crazy world of Javier Milei, he decided to fall out with the Pope during his election campaign. He called him a variety of different things. However, he's now apologised about all of that. And the Pope, being the Pope, decided to forgive him. So all's good and well in Argentina. However, all is not good and well in the Vatican City. And it hasn't been for a long period of time. And when Pope Francis took over the job in March 2013, one of the first things that he did was set up a task force to investigate the finances of the Vatican City, because historically there have been a lot of rumours about fraud, embezzlement and money going missing. Now, shortly after Pope Francis set up his task force, he also set up what's called the Secretariat of State, which is basically the finance department of the Vatican City. And the Catholic Church has a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars. And the Secretariat of State was given the job of investing all of this money on the Church's behalf to make sure that they had a regular income. Angelo Becciu was appointed to one of the senior roles within the Secretariat of State and given the responsibility of finding suitable investments. And one of the first investments that Angelo Becciu authorised was to invest a large amount of money into companies and charities owned and run by his brothers on the island of Sardinia. Now, around about the same time, Angelo Becciu met up with an Italian financier called Raffaele Mincioni, who was ex-Goldman Sachs and Merrill Lynch, and talked to him about investing $200 million into a potential new oil venture in Angola. Now, the Angolan oil deal never transpired, but Becciu and Mincioni stayed in contact, and Raphael Mincioni set up a fund called the Athena Global Opportunities Fund, and Becciu reportedly invested around €200 million of the Catholic Church's money into that fund. A large chunk of that cash was subsequently invested into a London property, and the Catholic Church ended up with a 45% ownership in 60 Sloane Avenue, London. Now, 60 Sloane Avenue was originally developed as a car showroom for the Harrods department store, and the building spans more than 170,000 square feet of offices and retail space with a neoclassical terracotta facade. The building no longer has a relationship with Harrods, and at the time of the investment was let out to a variety of different companies. Now, the plan at the time that this investment was made was reportedly to earn a yield of 10% per annum from the rental, and also to make a long-term capital gain on the value of the property as a result of the fact that Raphael Mincioni had obtained planning permission to convert the property into luxury apartments. And unfortunately, from the Catholic Church's point of view, this is the point of the story when things started to go badly wrong, because Raphael Mincioni had bought the property in 2012 for $129 million. However, the valuation that was attributed to the property when the church invested was significantly higher as a result of the fact that he had obtained this permission to convert the building from commercial use to residential use. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, well, actually, that story makes sense, because a building in the heart of Chelsea in London would have a higher value if you could convert it to luxury apartments rather than renting it to companies. So it all stacks up. However, what you're not taking into account is that in 2016, the population of the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union in a process called Brexit. And if you follow the channel, you'll know that whenever we're talking about anything to do with the UK, the root cause of any problems is always Brexit. Everybody blames everything on Brexit. However, in this circumstance, I think Brexit did have a hugely negative impact on the value of that property, because at that time nobody really knew what was going to happen, and the property market post 2016 did nosedive. So the Catholic Church was caught in the maelstrom, and they saw the value of this property plummeting, and in 2018 they decided to take full control and paid a reported €350 million for 100% ownership of that building. But unfortunately, from the Catholic Church's point of view, taking full control of the property didn't save the day, and the property was sold in 2022 for £186 million, which banked a loss of around $150 million for the Catholic Church. Now, one of the most intriguing developments was that in 2017, Angelo Becciu hired a security consultant called CECLIA Margona and reportedly paid her €600,000, which is around $650,000, out of the Secretariat of State's funds to free a Colombian nun who'd been taken hostage in Mali by Islamic extremists. The money was released directly from the Vatican bank accounts and paid to a Slovenian company that Margona had set up. Now, it's been reported that €500,000 of this sum was set aside to pay ransom demands by the kidnappers. However, no documentation exists, and during the court case, CECLIA Margona said she was unable to release any details due to secrecy acts, so she was implying that she was operating as a spy on behalf of the Italian authorities. Now, unfortunately for CECLIA Margona, the prosecutors in the court case didn't buy this, and they charged her with misappropriating €70,000, which they claim she spent on luxury hotels and high-end fashion shops. And during the trial itself, the commissioner projected images showing Facebook posts by Margona of pictures taken inside Becciu's apartment in the Apostolic Palace in the Vatican City, with the captions "feeling at home" and "my paradise." He also showed stills of video recordings showing Margona leaving Becciu's apartment with a carry-on bag after spending the night there. On October the 3rd, 2020, the head of the Vatican City Gendarmes met with Becciu in his apartment, and confronted the Cardinal about Marogna and warned him the money she was given was not being used as intended. The Cardinal, hands in his hair, asked us not to let the name of CECLIA Marogna emerge because it would have caused great damage to him and his family. And the prosecutor added that Becciu offered to pay Marogna's expenses out of his own pocket. In response to this, Becciu himself said, "It's true, I put my hands in my hair when they spoke to me about Mrs. Marogna," adding that his main concern was for the exposure of her role in an operation to release a kidnapped nun covered by the political secrets. Becciu also said he offered to pay for her expenses because if the money was mismanaged, it's my fault. Now all of this became too much for Pope Francis and his task force, and Angelo Becciu was subsequently arrested. Now, historically, whenever the Vatican City had a problem with regards to law and order, they took matters into their own hands. They would have their own jurisdiction. However, in this situation, the Pope decided that he didn't want to deal with this internally, and he passed a new ruling saying that Angelo Becciu and all of the other people who were accused of fraud and embezzlement could actually be tried in the Italian courts under Italian law. The court case against Becciu and 9 other defendants started in July 2021 and lasted for a period of 2.5 years and involved 86 different court hearings. And in December 2023, Angelo Becciu and his fellow defendants were found guilty of fraud and embezzlement, and he was sentenced to 5.5 years in jail. Now, obviously, he's appealing this sentence, and at the moment, he's still in the Vatican City. He isn't in an Italian jail, but it will be interesting to see whether or not he does have to go to prison and actually serve his sentence, or if the Pope decides to give him a pardon, because in previous circumstances like this, the Pope has the right to waive all charges. However, I don't think Pope Francis looks like he's in any mood to forgive Angelo Becciu. When you set up a task force to investigate fraud and embezzlement and then appoint one of your senior people into the position of making those investments, and that senior person then turns out to be a fraudster, that really is horribly embarrassing from the Pope's point of view, and I would be very surprised if he's in a forgiving mood. He may have forgiven Javier Milei for calling him all sorts of things in the press, but I don't think when it comes to money, Pope Francis is going to let Angelo Becciu out of prison. So hopefully you enjoyed today's slightly different video. If you did, then please give me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching this video all the way through to the end, and here's something to put a smile on your face.